Don't park your spirit. Find the path beyond harmony.
We are so powerful as beings. Nothing can tell you your path except for you. Once you start on this path, you can't turn around. If you believe it, things are going to work for you because every choice you make affects your life. Wherever you go, there you are.
Welcome back once again. Dan Erickson is joining me. Dan's joined me for a couple of videos now, and he started off with the Book of You, and he has peeled back some layers and answered some questions that have been absolutely beautiful. And this is going to be the wrap up, and I can hardly wait to see where this is going to go. Dan Erickson, welcome back.
Thank you, Carrie. And yeah, this has been a wonderful opportunity. When we started, I had really no idea it was going to turn into this. And I thought, I'll just blow through these questions in 20 minutes. And I started writing, and oh my gosh, I've probably got 15 pages of text. And we're only really touching the very introductory parts of it. And I really appreciate not only your patience, but the patience of the viewers, because I hope this has been at least somewhat entertaining. But
okay, whoa. Dan, your delivery, your explanation of what you're talking about, it comes from a space that is so full of love. You can feel it coming from you. And I know that because everybody who's listened to these, they are like, they're yearning for the next one. So cool. You have a gift. You are a healer. You are a teacher. So you have me just like captivated while I'm sitting here with you. So I can promise you, people are loving what they're hearing from you. And so let's wrap this baby up.
Yeah. So the last question that we're going to answer is probably the easiest one. And it's easy because all the other questions lead to it. And you've kind of been, getting it all along. And the answers are there. And I keep reiterating the same things because they're important. So the last question is, where am I going? We go through a physical life, and the question is, well, what happens when you die? Where do you go? What do I continue on or don't I? Or it's the big question, right? And people with lots of money, they have big monuments to themselves, and because they want to be remembered, and they think that by being remembered, that in some way they carry on, right? And you can think of some of the very biggest people in history. Their legacy is kept in our memory. That's how they think that they're progressed. And that may be true on the physical plane, but what happens spiritually? Where do you go from there? And all indications are based on the work of Bob Monroe, and even in the Bible, and our religious text, is that if we do certain things and believe certain things, that our spirit continues after physical death. And to prove it, some people have come back from the dead and talked about it. And we have all of these indications by near-death experiences. Not only that, but, traditionally in religion, we have a whole religion based on a guy coming back from the dead, right? And appearing after he died, and not in a physical body. He gave up his physical body, and he still appeared to his followers. And there was a long period in which, they interacted with him and talked to him and saw him, and he continued to provide teachings. So this is a real question, right? Is, well, what happens? Where are you going after you die? The answer that I've tried to say is, it depends on what you believe. If you're attached to material being and you're a materialistic person, and you believe that this shell, this avatar that you're walking around in, like your car or your house, if you die, you die. And that's the end of it. So if you believe that, then that's what's true for you. I, on the other hand, believe that I'm a spirit in a physical body having an experience to appreciate the creation of God. And when I die, and it's not just me, but if you believe that you're a spirit from God, well, then you would return back to God. And I'm not even going to get into this whole thing about being judged or anything else. That's up to you. That's on you. I'm just saying that if you came from God, you're probably going to go back to God. Like, why would God not want part of itself back? So that's the answer. And I know it sounds pretty simple.
Okay, we're done.
I know that sounds like, an oversimplification, but that's just the way it is.
Uh-huh.
If you want to make it more complicated and you want to wrap it in, okay, you have to do certain things and you have to have a heart as light as a feather and all of that. That's all good. Yeah, you want to be a free, not carrying all of this attachment and hate and all of these things. Think about it. I talked in the last one about the spiritual realm is a thought responsive realm. It's a realm of ideas. It's not a physical place. It doesn't respond physically. I mean, things do manifest from the spiritual realm into physicality, but think about it in the other way, right? There's rules. There's a spiritual realm that has spiritual rules. And if you're a creator, if you're going into a physical realm and you bring your awareness there, and it's thought responsive, which means you think of something and it becomes real to you based on what your expectations are. Wouldn't you want to train yourself to have some good thoughts?
You'd think.
You're cognizant now. You're fully aware and fully interacted. So fix these things here. Think about being in a dream, right? A dream is a thought responsive reality. And you're not really fully there, right? You don't have all of your cognitive ability in a dream state. I mean, people work at developing that. Well, dying is probably going to be something like that. It's going to be you, but this developed part of you. How cognizant are you? How aware are you going to be in this spiritual state? And if you've done nothing to overcome your fears, to overcome your traumas, nothing to resolve your relationships and your attachments, you're going to carry that with you into your next state because you're going to be focused on those things.
Yeah.
And I say this with some experience based on what I see from a relationship with my mother-in-law who has advanced stage dementia. And, dementia kind of steals you over a long period of time. You become less and less cognizant of your surroundings. And she's a very religious person. And she was unable to resolve some traumas and things in her life. And as her cognitive abilities have diminished, her fears have taken over. And despite the fact that she's surrounded by people who love her and take care of her, and she has all of the comforts, everything that we can possibly do to make her comfortable and feel safe and secure, she will invent something to be afraid of. She will every day focus on something. And she resets about every 30 seconds. Now, I'm not saying this to be, fear-mongering. I'm saying that had she maybe pursued some of these questions in her life when she was fully cognizant, she could have resolved some of these things while she had the capability, the intellectual capability to deal with her fears and to learn that technique because now her fears are manifesting. This is what she lives. And it's very difficult to see and watch. I'm sure that if she passes, that these things don't become her reality. I'm sure that there's, grace and there's other things. Her relationship is certainly going to be a saving thing for her. But while you're fully cognizant and while you're fully aware, and as you become more aware through your spiritual journey, it's this mature ability to deal with issues and problems and know inside that you have this core love and you can express that out. And that overcomes fear. That overcomes a lot of spiritual blockages. And there is a kind of to put a cap on this, I'm going to talk a little bit about spiritual blocks. And because it has everything to do with this division between physicality and spiritual aspects. And I define these blockages as aspects of the ego, because the ego is very much about your personal protection. And it doesn't really want, the ego believes that it will cease to exist if your spirit, your spiritual aspect, is in charge of your life, because the ego is in charge of your life now. And it's always been in control. And so now to give that control over to this part of you that's, not it, then, it's saying, well, I'm going to die. Well, the ego really doesn't die. The spirit uses the ego. It just like you use the body. It's an important aspect. It's going to keep you alive. It helps preserve you, and it gives you good things. It's not the idea is to incorporate these components, not to eliminate them. That unification means that you understand the full aspect and the full capabilities of who and what you are. And that means accepting all of these things, and not just the good parts or not just the bad parts. That you're a complete being full of all of these capabilities, and that part of understanding who you are is understanding this full range of capability. The overcoming the spiritual blockages, and this can best be summed up with, I had a conversation with a very spiritual person, and she was describing an OBE incident. And despite the fact that this is an OBE, whether you believe in that or not, I thought it was very illustrative of overcoming these spiritual blocks. So she was doing the exercise where she was going to meet God. And in her journey to meet God, she was on a path, and there was a gate with a guard at the gate. And she approached the guard and said that she was going to go on. And the guard said no, and pulled out a sword. And she said, well, I'm an indestructible being. And the guard proceeded to cut her arm off. And she picks up her arm and kind of walks away, kind of stunned, and says, well, that's interesting. That's never happened before. But she puts her arm back on and heals herself. And kind of perplexed, and for most of us, that would be the end of the journey, right? I mean, we would be so stunned that would be the end of the dream, or that would be the end of the meditation. But for her, I mean, she was very advanced. She heals herself. She comes back and she says, "Well, see, you didn't hurt me. I'm indestructible." And she ends up, her and the guard, she says, "Well, you almost fooled me. I almost started to believe that I was a mortal being again, that I was a physical being, and that you could actually hurt me with that sword." And they ended up laughing. Okay. So she was able to overcome this blockage by her understanding of answering these 5 questions. And I'm going to read to you what the summation is of that, because in each of the instances here, I've talked about a realization, right? So in the who am I, you realize that you are a spiritual being having a physical experience. And the next question is, what am I? And that's composed of 3 parts, right? I said, where do I come from? And the realization from that was, I'm an indestructible spirit that will survive death, and I'm now occupying a physical body. The second part was, the next question is, why was I created? And you're created to appreciate the creation, because and we figured out that by simply saying thank you to everything, it automatically raises your vibration. It puts you into a different way of seeing and communicating and interacting with your environment. It's the fastest way to immediately raise your vibration. If you ever wanted to know, well, how do I raise my vibration today? You just go, well, say thank you. Find one thing to say thank you about, and your day will change. I mean, why focus on the negative, right? Why have a negative relationship? Have a positive relationship. And that leads into the next one is, the third part of what am I is, what can I do? And we went into some really cool things about that, but the realization from what can I do is that you have a choice. That's what you can do. You can choose. And that's more important than everything, because if you can choose, that means you're not scripted. That means you don't live a fate-driven life, that you live a life based on what you want to do. And I suggested that you write that story of meeting God, because you can. Because you have the capability of doing that. And nobody and nothing can get between you and that relationship.
No.
So that answers those 3 components of what am I? And of course, this last question then is, where are you going? And if you're from God, you can return to God. And there's really nothing to get between you and that meeting. There's the physicality. There are all of these projections and expectations and belief systems which may get in the way of doing that. But there's a saying here that we've kind of put together by answering these questions. And the saying is, I am, when you are challenged by a guard or something preventing you from moving forward, and the guard will say, well, who are you? And you say, well, I am sent by the divine, by God, to appreciate and experience the creation. And I am returning to God. And what is that guard going to say to that? So when you meet, when you meet something that's going to prevent you from having that meeting, see, this is something that you have to know inside. And somebody will say, well, you know, I had the meeting and I said that and he didn't believe me. Right? And so he still didn't let me through. So what do you do then? And you say, well, I'd like you to meet my friend. And you just turn to the left and your friend is there. The free pass. The friend, your best friend is right there. You say, well, if you don't believe me, talk to him.
Wow.
Yeah.
You did put a big bow on it, man. That's beautiful. Wow. My sister passed away in October of 2020, and not from COVID. My mother was, we had a horrible life. My mom had 5 husbands, 3 kids. My sister had 5 husbands, 3 kids. Hers were all from different dads. And we had a horrible childhood. And so my other sister and I, we did whatever we could to make ours better. This sister, hers just kept going down further and further down. I mean, I did not think it could get worse in our childhood, but it did. And by the time she finally, which shocked me, she actually left her husband of 30 years who had been belittling her and calling her names and keeping her this big for all of her life. And she was an alcoholic. She was probably 80 pounds soaking wet. And so she finally did leave him and she moved in with her son and she ended up getting into the hospital early on. But when she passed, it was she was in such a darkness, such a deep. I mean, her daughter was there and she had her on speaker and I was trying to tell her, help her to, not go down, a bad rabbit hole there. But so it's like that life, she didn't never see a spark in anything. There was nothing for her to even see a glimmer. So it's like, when we pass at that stage, it's like she will, be there with her body and she will not know there's anything. And, she will be retrieved eventually. When we do pass, it's like where we are mentally. It's like, so for her, it's a darkness. It's like, she just had darkness. So she's like clinging to this body. But then we come back to do these lives again. And if she could do this, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, until you just take a step up, take a step toward the light, take a step to know that there's so much more to this life than anybody has any clue. And we come here to play in the darkness. We come here to experience the opposites. We are the good and the bad because we come here to play in the clay. It's a sandbox. We voluntarily come here to learn how to do. But every single one of us, the ultimate goal is to find God, aim for that light. And then once you do, it's just to see that every experience we come here to experience, and we have some horrific tragedies in our lives. When you stay in the tragedy, that is where you will be. But look for that little mouse hole, look for that little glimmer of light, that little pinhead, because that's the way out. And you follow that path, you go to that light, you get out of it, you turn around, you look at it, once you remove yourself from a situation, once you get out of a situation, you look back at it and you see the lessons, you see the miracles, you see the wonder. But when you're in it, you can't. You have to get out, get through everything you're going through, because there is an exit point to every single thing you're going through. There's a way out of everything, because everything is here as a lesson that you wanted to learn in this lifetime. So get out to the other side. And I've gone through so many different parts of my life, Dan, from when I was, the abused child, and then, the crazy woman who didn't know how to adult, who didn't know how to live. I mean, all these chapters, but each one I got through. I got to the other side and I could look back. And so these are all things that we've set up for us because we are strong. We can get through anything, but we doubt ourselves. We've been told we're not worthy. We've been told we're nothing. And we believe it. And then I'm just going to do this. I'm going to rot on this log and die. It's like, none of this is real. All of this is, we all have the power to get from me, an abuse victim, woe is me, card carrying victim, my entire 30 years of my first part of my life, to where all that is gone. It's like so far behind me. And it's like, if I can get through all of these events that I went through, Anybody can. And that's why I think I'm here on this mountaintop, because I got through it. And if I could, anybody can.
Yeah, and I'm kind of feeling right now that I should share something that was about depression and PTSD, and that people who suffer from this, they can't find their way out, and I when you ask them to quiet and still their mind, they are bombarded with all of these thoughts, and that becomes very uncomfortable. I mean, that's a form of torture, basically, to be reliving, and they're not finding a way out of that. And I what I want to do is acknowledge that that's a real thing. And when I'm talking about, finding God in this blissful light and this peace and quiet, I'm setting that out as a goal for someone who's really suffering, because that is there. It does exist. But while there's a lot of pain and suffering that you have to go through, coming out of that trauma bubble, that as you've described it, that there is light there, and you're probably going to need help coming to those realizations, and that's okay, because there are other people who've been through what you've been through, and there is possibilities at the end of that. Now, I've dislike talking about things like suicide, but for those people who have come to that point where they feel that they need to end their life because this is too much to take, I understand. But if you're at the point where you're ready to end your life, this is the beginning. Because if you're ready to end it, that means that you're ready to make a change, that you're ready to turn everything over, that your ego has given up. I mean, the ultimate thing for the ego, right? It's supposed to keep you alive, and it's saying, I give up. Well, then it's time for your spirit to step in and save the day and ask for help.
Because you have nothing to lose at that point. Nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing.
You're willing to sacrifice your life for it. Then it's like, just buy yourself a plane ticket to anywhere and get there and start. It's like wherever you go, there you are. But it's like that I have done articles and talked about suicide, because I've been 3 times. I mean, I was right there. I was like, okay, I'm out. I can't handle this, too hard. You're willing to walk away from everything. So what's the worst that can happen if you just buy yourself a ticket to somewhere you've dreamed of going and just go there?
Right.
And then see who you are. Because you just change the situation. You've changed the situation. And now you don't see it from that same lens. And just, that has been my thing. It's like, you're going to end it anyway. Just spend some money, because you're not taking that with you, and go somewhere you've dreamed of going. And then you'll start paying more attention. It's just, you have to sometimes just change your environment, because where we are, it creates the chaos, but just go somewhere else. Just, what do you have to lose? And at that point, you can start from any point.
Yeah. And then, the thing that we deal with here with my mother-in-law's situation is, and this works, is to say, you say one positive thing, just one thing. It might be, your hair looks nice, or, your smile, I see you're smiling today, or just one thing positive, and get them to say one thing positive. They look out the window, and there's birds eating on at the bird feeder, and there's a pretty red bird, and they say, oh, look at the pretty red bird. One positive thing. And that's one moment where you're not in this other place. And if you have one moment of positive, then you can have 2, and then have 3. and you can grow from there, and then you can push out, like this bubble that you were saying. You push out, and okay, well, I can't control the world, but I can control this moment, and go from there.
And how I react to the world is up to me. How I choose to react, how I choose to do anything. Like you've said all through this whole thing, it's all a choice. We decide either I become it, I die, go into the misery with everybody else, or I rise above it. And yeah, it's all a choice. Everything here is a choice.
Carrie, those are the most powerful messages that I've heard you saying, and I think that everyone can use that and go forward from that. And you're an awesome example. That we keep talking about, that example of energy that's pushing out, and thank you for these opportunities to talk about this and bring
Thank
this up.
you. the whole thing, way this whole channel evolved. It was beautiful. I mean, it started, I was doing videos, and then Jen and Connie, because they were so critical, and then you and Maria Lane. It's like, okay, this is what is supposed to be happening. And your messages are supposed to get out, Dan. This has been absolutely beautiful. You have very carefully unwrapped this very gently. So it hasn't been like a bombardment. It was just, you unfolded it, so it made sense. And then we stopped, and then you unfold a little bit more, and then it made sense. This has been beautiful. The work you have done and these messages that you have for everybody. This is a gift. I mean, I'm going to make these a set, these Dan videos. They need to go to everybody. Everybody needs to see these Dan videos. So somehow, some way, everybody's going to hear your message. This has been beautiful. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you, Carrie. And, I just asked questions, and I started looking for the answers, and started writing stuff down. And this is available for everyone. They can get their own answers. And I hope that this has been a part of your spiritual journey, and that you will look at answering these in your own way, and documenting it, and writing your own book. And because you're the one who's in charge of your book, there's really nobody else that's running it. And that, I think, is the most powerful thing, is to create your own future.
And I think the first chapter everybody needs to write is the one you said. It's like, you're with God. I mean, start there, and then it's only better from there. It took me a lot of years, a lot of decades to meet and know that I was actually a spark of God, and that God is with me all the time. And so with this, I hope people can start peeling this back so much earlier in life, and start opening their eyes to realize this life can be, wow, I can imagine if I was where I am now 30 years ago, what my life would be. Boggles my mind. But, well, I am where I am now, and that's all that matters. And so getting these videos out to everybody, and Dan, your messages are just beautiful, and they're for everybody to hear.
Well, thank you, Carrie, and great job. Good stuff. I'm happy to be here.